Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth in our series of episodes where we rate all 373 of Coronation Street's regular characters over the years using the Corriepedia Ultimate Character Survey. If you haven't had a go at the survey yourself yet, just click the link in the notes below and give it a try for yourself. Now, the 1980s were a period of real change for Coronation Street. At the start of the decade, all four of these characters were still a big part of the show, but by the time the 90s hit, they were all gone. So, who did Coronation Street get to replace them? Did they live up to the legends that came before them? Or were they like the trusty shell suit here, no more than a short-lived fad? Let's find out.
And we're back for the 1980s, a golden era of Coronation Street, I would have to say, but one that you've not seen a whole lot of. So I don't know how many of these that you're going to want to score, whether it's going to be down to me to score.
I don't think I should be involved in this at all, because I don't know anything that happened in the 80s.
But there'll be some characters that started in the 80s that carried on through the 90s, 2000s and more. So Alma...
Not Alma, she died.
She did die, very tragically, around the time you started watching, I'm going to say.
I don't remember her being in it.
I think she's pretty iconic, but from watching her, she never quite had that something that propelled her into definitely not iconic status, but even really, really solid status. So it might be a bit sacrilege, but I think maybe a 3 for Alma.
I thought you were going to say 4.
No, I know. I think.
So she's the same level as Chesney. This is why it should be out of 10.
Careful then. Now you get to mention it. Oh, Percy, it's Phyllis Pierce. Absolutely love this character. Really, really minor. We've never done a character profile of her because I don't think she really had any stories. She was just there to stalk poor Percy. She was just a randy old pensioner. But she was kind of like a Moira sort of character, maybe appearing a little bit more than Moira does now, but just literally there for comic relief. Really, yeah, lovable character, but again, you've not seen very much of her, so I'll do the vote for this one. I'm gonna give her a 4, definitely.
Wow.
4. Percy.
Good job you changed the score for Alma then.
Yeah, I think so. Percy, again, love him. He's a cantankerous old ex-army vet. He could cook gravy under gunfire.
Every single time you say Percy Sugden, you say gravy under gunfire.
I know,
every time
it's
you
so
say
cliche.
Reg Holdsworth, you say, I'm sorry, but I think he's really good.
Well, just wait until we get to Reg, because he's going to be coming in soon. I did enjoy Percy. He's not the sort of person that I'd actually like to know in real life, but just the fact that he was so humorless most of the time, wound up everybody that he came into contact with. Poor Emily had to suffer him as a lodger for so long, but he had some fantastic scenes in the D-Day and VE Day episodes in 94, 95. So I'm going to go for a 4 for him. Absolutely love Percy Sugden. Arnold Swain, that might have to be one that we skip. He married Emily in 80, 81 roundabout then, which is a little period of Coronation Street that I haven't seen yet. I know that the story that he was, when he got married to her, then it turned out that he was a bigamist, and then he tried to get her to do a suicide pact with him or something.
Blimey.
So it sounds kind of an exciting story, but for a character, I don't feel qualified to rate him, so he might have to be the first one that we skip right over. Martin Chavez, this is the grandson of Elsie Tanner, son of...
he was a baby
of
early
Ivan.
years.
Yeah, he was. So obviously we've only seen him in his baby form. We haven't watched him come back in the 1980s.
I have to skip him.
I think we're going to have to skip him. Sharon Gaskell. Now, I remember watching her and enjoying her on the Granada Plus repeats of the 1980s Corries back in the late 90s. And immediately she stood out to me. Tracey Bennett was a fun, sparky character. She was a bit dry and sarcastic as well. She was a foster daughter of Rita and Len at the time, and a bit of a troublemaker, a bit of a pre-Jenny Bradley. Interestingly, I thought, while they were showing those repeats on Granada Plus, pretty much at the same time, or maybe a little bit later, they had the character come back into normal Coronation Street. So yeah, this was 98, 99 time, and she didn't kind of leave a particularly positive impression then. Maybe I think she tried to scam Rita or something like that. But
they all do.
They all do at one time or another. All the foster children come back. She shouldn't be so rich. She shouldn't have such,
What's the point, Rita? You can't take it with you.
Yeah.
Maybe she just thinks to herself, I've bought all the big earrings I can possibly fit in my ear rolls. There's no point. I'll just save it up.
I do recognise that she is a pretty minor character, but compared to some of the others on there, when I think back about Sharon Gaskell, I go, I liked her actually. I liked her. We're going to give her a 3. Curly Gemma. Now I'll pass back over to you because you have seen a bit of Curly. Well, just from the little that you've seen,
a tiny amount of Curly.
You saw his final years, didn't you?
I would say he's a 4. I'm not going to give him. He's not like Ina Sharple's Elsie Tanner, but he's an important part of the Coronation Street tapestry, isn't he?
Really, really is. 20 years he was on the show. Solid character. Just failed at the very end when they made him this character
boring.
That was supposed to be boring. Made him
actually
but enjoyable to watch. Just made him actually boring, marrying him off to Emma.
There's an important point to make here, and that is to acknowledge the fact that as we are scoring these characters, it must be said that back in the old days, not only were there fewer episodes, but there was fewer members of the cast. As you get further on in the years, you're going to find people who are going to get scored lower than they may have done just because they don't make, like, the percentage of the time they appear on your screen is going to get lower and lower and lower. You know, if Curly Watts had been in it in 1959 through to 1970 or whatever, I mean 1960, sorry, he would have perhaps have been a 5. But because he wasn't in every episode for a decade,
I know what you mean. I think 4 is definitely good enough for Curly. He's not quite.
I think at the end of the day, you have to work harder to be a 5 out of 5 in current Corrie than you did back in the day.
I agree.
And it's not really fair, but that's life.
Shirley Armitage, a girlfriend of Curly at some point, and quite famous because she was, I think, the first regular black character on Coronation Street. We've certainly not seen any so far. She got involved in him, and there was a bit of an issue story where I think Alf didn't like the fact that she was living above his shop. But
Alf?
Yeah.
What, because she was black?
I think so. I think I'm remembering this correctly.
Okay.
But I honestly don't really remember, and I must have seen her in the classic episodes on Granada Plus. This is going back 20 years, I remember. But she's left no impression at all on me. Because I've seen her, I feel like I have to score her. But I'm going to say a 1, sadly.
And it's
Shirley Armitage.
Sort of partially a reflection upon the roles that they were giving actors of colour.
Absolutely. Martin Platt, the Cheesemeister, plays Sean
Platt
Wilson.
Is a significant character.
He is, but even watching him in the 90s on the classic Coronation Street on ITV3 at the moment, he's not that exciting. He's a husband to Gail, and I felt sorry for him, the fact that he has not felt accepted by young Nick. But looking back, I'm thinking, did he really do that much exciting? He had that affair with Katie Harris in his later years on the show, but he was certainly no all-time classic. I would say like a 3 for Martin. Do you remember much of him from when you started watching?
I do remember him, and I don't remember thinking, "Oh, this guy's fun."
No, he did the job. What he had to do, he did fine.
Yeah, but 3 is, I think, a fair.
Yeah.
If you were scoring him out for cheese, of course that would be a 5.
Don Brennan, misunderstood, I would say, for him. He went out with a bang. Literally, he drove his car into the viaduct, trying to run over Mike Baldwin, and exploding in a fiery inferno. But for so much of his time on Coronation Street, he wasn't a wrong on, I swear it. Yes, he did a bit of gambling on the side when it sort of hid things from Ivy and had a bit of an affair, maybe. But he had a tyrannical wife back at home.
Can I just condemn adultery?
You can. I join you on that.
I don't really want you to be saying on record, if your wife is an annoying bitch, it's okay to have an affair, because I think anyone would rightly categorise me in the annoying bitch slot of wifery, and I don't want you to think you've got a free pass.
A lot of the time, he was a really decent chap. You went for the Rovers with the lads.
If you want to have an affair with a lady,
yeah, it
has to be someone who can pay for the hotel and the drinks and the food. I'm not letting you pay for it. Fair enough.
If you're
buying meals, I'm eating it.
He had the story where he tried to kill himself. He drove his car. Did he gas himself? I can't
How many
remember.
times is he driving
Lost his
cars and
leg.
good things?
He had a troubled time, did old Don. I'm gonna say a 3, but I mean close to a 4 for me.
Oh.
I would say.
Oh, I love Bill. He went to Germany and died.
Has he died on screen? I can't remember. I know that Peter
Armitage
has
sadly died.
But I don't know whether Bill's still going. I've got a feeling he is.
Not for much longer.
No, because Kevin and Kept had to go and visit him, didn't he? While he was in the show, he was a decent chap.
Liked
Salt
him.
of the earth.
Thought he was great. Minor character, 3.
Yeah,
easily.
I think 3 is fine for Bill. He was an interesting one that he came into the show back in the early 80s. I'm going to say 82, 83, 84. Was in it for about 6 months, then bogged off to Southampton for about 15 years, and then resurfaced back in the mid-90s.
There's a lot to do and see in the sunny Southampton.
Debbie. So this is somebody who you'll know from last year when Sue Devaney reprised the role to come back, shower Kevin with money from poor Auntie Vi, sadly deceased, and then bogged right off again.
How much
but she
did
was
he
all,
get?
was it 70 grand or something like
Lovely.
that? But he shared some of it, didn't he? With Jack had some and Sophie had some, and that's why she's selling herself
Barley?
over in his Barley. That's
Should we go to Barley?
Maybe. But back in the 80s, she was also in it for a little bit. I can't say that she deserves to be any higher than a 2. We've seen her, so I feel that we should rate her, but
Okay.
2 or a 1. I mean, if we're comparing against, say, Trisha Hopkins, Susie Birchall, she certainly, for me, falls into that category. But we've seen more of them than we have Debbie. So then they had their chance to impress us and they just didn't. So 2 for Debbie.
Okay.
Fair enough. And she does like Southampton, so
She
as
can't be all
fellow
wrong.
Southamptonians.
Gina! I feel like that guy in the IT crowd. Father!
Gina. Oh,
Love Gina
gosh.
so much.
Connie Hyde's Gina.
Connie Hyde's Gina was a revelation. They stabbed her in the back at the end. The Coronation Street decided to sacrifice her on the mantle of Sully and Tim for some reason, even though I would say arguably more of an interesting character than the pair of them put together. Gina was so fascinating, given how much we know now about mental health and how important it is to represent people and how difficult it can be to live with these conditions. The fact that Gina was a character who had bipolar disorder, who was trying to live a normal life but still kept falling into these traps. And I think Coronation Street can be quite sympathetic to characters who have so-called inverted commas normal problems, like, oh, I'm sad, I'm going to get drunk and become an alcoholic. Oh, I'm sad, I'm going to become a gambler. Gina has no control over her mental, like the hormones and all the things going around in her head any more than somebody who has depression. But they did a really, like, Connie Hyde played Gina so well and depicted the sort of tragic, heartbreaking experience of somebody with bipolar. But then at the very end, I think they just kind of threw it away in the bin because they wanted to get rid of the character, and they wanted a sort of a bombastic way to do that. And so they had her pretend to sleep with Tim and all this stuff. But when she was in it, she was heartbreaking and fun and interesting. And when she would get in her manic moods, like that time she decided she wanted to have a hat company.
Oh yeah, she did, didn't she?
And
she
she designed hats and Tommy O. Didn't he buy some?
Yeah.
Can I just please request a picture of Tommy O wearing a novelty hat made by Gina Seddon?
So this is sounding like a solid 4 from you.
Absolutely love her because Connie Hyde played her with integrity, dignity and passion, and I think she's so talented, and Gina is such a complex character, and I know those can be
misunderstood.
They can be so difficult to write for as well.
Eunice G ends up marrying Fred in the mid-80s, although she does make a return to the programmes back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember, as a B&B owner that Jack and Vera go and stay with. I've seen her. I don't know much about her. I'm going to go for a 1 because sadly she hasn't stood the test of time with me. Same with Chalky White.
Don't know. Pass.
I've probably seen him. We'll go for for a 1 with him. Don't know much about who that guy is. I don't think he was in it for long. Marian Yates, she was lovely.
Couldn't tell you if she's his sister or his wife.
She's his wife. He ends up doing a bit of BB radio when he's out on the bins, and he finds Stardust Lil, who he falls in love with.
What was his name? I asked you this in the quiz.
Slim Jim.
That's correct.
So Marian Yates is a really lovely character, but I don't think she particularly gets a whole lot of development, because she comes in and whisks Eddie away to a lovely happy life, which is exactly what a wonderful character like Eddie Yates deserves.
This is what
Can't
happens
give her
when
more than a 2.
She's the farm your dog goes to live on when they die.
Totally. Mark Redman.
Pass.
So he is Mike's son with Maggie Redman, and after an illicit affair, he makes a couple of on and off appearances during the 90s and early 2000s. I think he might have been aged up at one point so that he could end up going to school with Nick, but not that exciting. But his big story was when he came back and had an affair with Mike Baldwin's wife Linda,
Naughty.
which I thought was a little bit sleazy. I'm going to say I don't really like him, so 1 for him. Gloria Todd, barmaid in the Rovers during the 80s. That's the Gloria that we saw at Corrie Fest when we went up to the Lascagari pub in 2013, and she came on and spoke on stage for a bit.
It's still a pass.
I'll give her a 1 because I've seen her. Sandra Stubbs, Sally Watts. Now that's I've got no idea, so that's going to be a pass. Tina Fowler.
I recognise her. Has she been in other things?
I don't know. I think you might probably recognise her from this. She was a barmaid at the Rovers for a bit. Not left any impression on me. Going to go for a 1 with her. George Wardle. I can't remember who that guy was. I don't remember his story. He's going to have to be a pass for me. The Clayton family. I think we're going to have to... I want to give passes to all the Claytons. These are the family that they moved in. I think they wanted a fairly normal family, but ended up that just being a bit boring, a bit like the Hopkins, really. Andrea Clayton ends up having...
Andrea Clayton?
Yeah,
okay.
she ends up having an affair with Terry and bearing his child, who comes back later into it. Now, here's an interesting one. Look at the actress's name here. Sue
she
Clayton.
plays Bernie in Coronation Street.
Look at this. It's young
You can
Bernie.
kind of see a little bit of that face about her, can't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna skip her because I can't rate her at all from the 80s.
Wow.
But I'll be looking forward to seeing her if they're in any of the DVD episodes when we get onto the 80s to see what a young Jane Hazelgrove was like. No. Now here's someone. I'm not gonna try.
Let's not.
What about you, Jem? What are you gonna give Jem? What a character. Fiery, funny, catchphrases.
What did I give Liz?
Big man. 4 you gave Liz.
It's got to be a 4 then. It can't be more than Liz.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you were going to give him anything less than a 4, I'd have given you a big catch yourself on. 4, I think, is what this guy deserves. Maybe a 5, but I 4, fair enough.
Andy.
That picture of Andy is so funny.
Poor
He just looks
Andy.
like a lovelorn sort of heartbroken. Yeah, that not the best of the McDonald twins.
No.
Second best.
Out of
McDonald's
2, he comes
twin.
second.
Yeah, he was all right, but he was just a little bit dull, really. And I like how they've brought him back every now and again for big family events. But even then, he's not been in the show for 10 years or so now. I think we might have seen the last of Andy. Mark Casey worked in the garage for a bit. Not very exciting at all. Stuart Wolfenden played Jackson Hodges' dad. So the guy who got Faye pregnant, he came back many years later to play her dad.
I can see who's
Trivia.
next.
Oh, it's Ken Morley playing Reg Holdsworth, one of my favourite Corrie characters.
You're going to give him a 4, aren't you?
He in my heart is a 4. I've found him absolutely hilarious. I know that he's a massive Marmite character, but sorry, Reg Holdsworth, what a legend. And here's another one. Kimberly Taylor means nothing to you, but she ended up going out with Curly, and she was a total mousy. She was very repressed. She's very shy and retiring, and Curly was trying to always get her into bed, but she wouldn't. She had been wanted to marry him first. Her parents, absolutely hilarious, 2 very, very conservative Christians, but such a funny double act. They were brilliantly wonderful.
Okay.
Mummy and Daddy Taylor. I've really enjoyed watching them on the classic Corries on ITV3. Wonderful. Kimberly eventually ends up going out with her cousin or something weird like that. As a character herself, she didn't really do much for me, so I would say a 2. But the story that she was involved in and the parents, that would propel that higher. But I think for Kimberly Taylor, a 2 seems fair enough.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and if you enjoyed that, why not show your appreciation by giving that like button a bit of a click? And if your mouse finger's in a pretty click happy mood, then why not try some of our other fine videos here on YouTube? There should be some links appearing next to me anytime now. Now, as you might have been able to tell from that video, Gemma and I are only a little bit through our 1980s DVD. We don't really know the characters particularly well, but that is all going to change next week when we reach the decade that I first started watching Coronation Street, the 1990s. We'll see you then.